Hey, this is JT. Welcome to my house and welcome to Bodyweight Strength. In this video, I'm actually shooting from inside because we have a giant dust storm going on outside. The air quality is terrible. I don't want to be out there, although I do prefer shooting these videos for you guys outside. This one's coming from inside the house. In this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about the common reasons why results stop for me, for you, for everybody. And there really is like 4 reasons, and these may have sub reasons and there's nuance to everything. But if you are at a plateau, or if you've struggled in the past with progressing in the gym or at whatever type of physical training, or if it's been losing weight when you diet, you get to a plateau, you're stuck and everything just seems to grind to a halt. There's like 4 primary reasons, okay? And this is going to answer majority of the DMs that I get or messages that I get on social media are people wanting to troubleshoot why their progress has stopped, okay? And this is going to basically give you a zoomed out view of the 4 things that you should self-spot or self-check to see if it sounds like one of these or a combination of these is why your progress has stalled, okay? So the top reasons why progress stops are going to be you are not ensuring the principle's progressive overload, your energy balance is off, you're not eating enough protein, or you're getting inadequate sleep and recovery, okay? I'll roll through these one at a time, and then what I'll do is I'll actually make a more detailed video of each one so that this video doesn't end up being, inordinately long. I want to be respectful of your time and make this where it's not some giant commitment to get through it. So the first, and I think the most important, if you are training, so if you are a physically active individual and you're not sedentary and you feel like you're banging your head against the wall and your results have come to a standstill, or you're progressing too slowly, or whatever the case is, but you're not happy with your results, then the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are adhering to the principle of progressive overload. And very simply, you've got to understand that we are adaptive organisms as humans. The way that we improve at anything is to basically be subjected to an outside stimulus that then forces us to adapt. And adaptation is one response to an outside stimulus, okay? There's, probably nobody knows who this guy is, but there's an old guy who was in the bodybuilding scene named Arthur L. Ray, and he had a saying which was adapt, migrate, or die. And what he would mean by that is that when an external stimulus puts pressure on you, you either adapt to the stimulus, or you migrate away from the stimulus, or you perish. Okay, there's only 3 options. And so this type of stress that we apply to the body from physical training or from diet or whatever, the body adapts to the stress. So I'll give you a really simple example. I see people on social media, hey, I'm going to do 100 push-ups a day for the month of, November or whatever. And what happens is, and that's commendable, it's totally cool. All physical activity is good as long as it's safe. And so what happens is they do 100 push-ups, and for that time, for the month or for however long it takes, they're applying an outside stimulus of 100 push-ups a day. The body is going through cellular adaptations in the response to that stimulus. But eventually the body's going to have fully adapted to the 100 push-ups a day. And at a certain point, you're going to be doing the 100 push-ups a day just to stay the same, right? Just to not backslide. And so one of the most common reasons why people stop making progress with regards to hypertrophy or gains in the gym, whatever you want to call it, when they DM me, is that they have adapted to the stimulus and they're not applying a progressive new stimulus. They're not progressing in the external stimulus that would force internal adaptation. So progressive overload, that means that if you like to wake up and run 3 miles every day or every other day or whatever, and your pace is like 7 miles per hour, whatever your pace happens to be, that's a healthy activity. It's going to continue to yield health benefits for a lifetime. However, you are going to adapt to that stimulus at a point. And now, unless you either go farther, and if you don't want to go farther, meaning you don't want to add volume to your run, then what you can do is you can add intensity to your run. So you can go up hills, or you can go faster. And so over time, and it doesn't have to be huge jumps, okay? Over time, small increases, a quarter mile an hour every other week or whatever the case is, every month, however long it takes you. But over time, so over a unit of time, you should be adding or increasing volume or intensity to your training. So that would be an example for cardio, or for the 100 push-up guy. After the 100 push-ups are able to be done, and let's say it's sets of 10 or whatever, now make those individual sets higher, so go sets of 12, and then go for 120 push-ups. Or you can see where adding volume, though, makes the workouts continue to get longer and longer. So what you could do is you could add intensity. You could do those push-ups with your feet elevated to make them harder. You could do them one archer push-ups, one arm out on a ball. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. I'm not going to get into that. But the moral of the story is you need to make sure that you are ensuring progressive overload of the body, so the body continues a training adaptation to the external force. Hopefully that makes sense. If you are spinning your wheels, not moving forward, then you're not progressively overloading, and that is your problem, or one of your problems. Now, the reason I put that first, these other things can make overloading progressively a real problem. If you're trying to make progress in the form of hypertrophy or strength adaptations, but you are under eating, then your peak strength is going to be down. You're not going to have as much energy. And so energy balance can affect whether or not you're progressively overloading. Keep in mind that if you're dieting and you're eating in an energy deficit, your goal is to maintain strength. If you are new to training, you may actually get stronger while you're dieting, and that's totally normal. There's a certain amount of strength, and you can build muscle while you're in a negative energy balance or while you're dieting. If you are new to training, or if you are overweight, with the more body, you don't have to necessarily be very overweight either. Just if you have an okay amount of body fat, maybe 15-17%, which is not very, very big, you can lose fat while you build muscle at the same time. Anabolic and catabolic processes, the process of building tissue and then breaking down tissue, are happening all the time simultaneously. And so you can build muscle, just like you see people who do these transformations. They lose 20 pounds and they've also got more muscle. Not just look leaner, but they've built muscle at the same time. Yes, you can build muscle in an energy deficit. So you do not, I know some people say this, but they're not right. You do not have to eat a positive energy balance or a surplus of calories to gain muscle. If you want to gain weight, okay, if you want to make the scale go up, so if you weigh 150 and you want to get to 160, you absolutely have to have a positive energy balance. There's some people who think, and some research that maybe suggests that carnivore, keto, low carbohydrate diets or whatever may potentially have some metabolic advantage. And whether or not that's true is not the issue. Whether a specific diet's better than another diet, none of that really matters, because maybe you can get away with eating a little more on a very high protein carnivore diet, so your total energy you can take in more. But either way, you still have to eat into a positive energy balance if you want the scale to go up. If you're a 150-pound man or a 110-pound woman, you're too thin in your mind. If you don't eat more energy than you expend, you can still build muscle, like I mentioned. But that scale is not going up, right? Energy equals matter, matter equals energy, or matter equals energy. We're biological systems, and there's an argument for maybe energy wasting and certain things. We're not a car. We're not robotic, right? So I certainly don't understand the body. In fact, human metabolism is crazy, crazy complicated. Nobody really understands it fully. But I do get the argument that there may be some metabolic advantages to specific diets. And that's totally cool. I'm not trying to argue against or for that. What I'm saying is, no matter which diet you do, no matter how metabolically advantaged it is, if you want to gain weight, if we're talking about body weight bodybuilding, if you want to gain weight, you have to eat a positive energy balance, okay? And if you are overweight, yes, you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time. You can drastically recomposition your body. But if you want to lose 10 or 15 pounds on the scale, okay, if you want to see the scale actually come down 15 pounds, you have to have a net negative energy balance. So you still have to adhere to energy balance. And it's not just about gaining total body weight or losing weight. It's about supporting progressive overload if you are training, okay? And so if you are working out really hard and you're working out for an hour a day, for example, so you have a pretty high training volume, if you're grossly under eating and your energy intake is far too low for your activity level, theoretically you should lose weight. But at the same time, it's going to be very difficult for you, because what's happening is you are grossly under consuming dietary energy, And when you have a giant negative energy balance chronically, so I'm not talking about for a day or a few days like people do, intermittent fasting and they perform really well. That's totally fine. But what happens with intermittent fasting is it's generally a period of undereating and then a period of overeating, right? And so you're eating cyclically in a way that is not a chronic energy deficit. If your energy balance is off chronically, so you are chronically overeating, obviously, I don't think anybody's going to argue. If you're chronically overeating, you're going to gain weight. And if you're not resistance training, the weight you gain is probably going to be fat. If you are resistance training, the weight you gain hopefully will be lean tissue in the form of muscle. If you're chronically undereating energy, okay, and you are training, wanting to gain muscle and gain basically size, I have a lot of guys reach out and DM and they're just like training hard and they are putting in the work and they're trying to make progress. They're trying to overload and it's just not happening and they feel like they're stuck. And then when we break down what they're eating, what's happening is they're grossly under consuming energy, which is not a recipe for success. You cannot perform optimally and gain weight, obviously, if you're under eating. So make sure that you are trying to progressively overload. And if that's not happening, is your energy balance off? And then, are you eating enough protein? And these are kind of 2A and 2B in reality, because protein is an incredibly important macronutrient. And when we're talking about body composition, it's the most important macronutrient. And I say that because studies show that protein drives 24-hour energy expenditure. So if you eat a certain amount of food per day and the calories or the energy in that food is matched between days, but on one day you eat a higher percentage of it from protein, then your energy expenditure for that 24-hour period is higher. So from a fat loss perspective, from a body composition perspective, ensuring enough protein is super, super important. So you've got to make sure that your energy balance matches your goals with regards to your training, and you got to make sure your protein is high enough as well. When it comes to protein, you want to make sure that you are consuming 0.8 grams per pound of body weight or 1.6 grams per kilo. And that's to make sure, that's the minimum that researchers found to ensure that you make optimal biological adaptations to the external stimulus from your training. So you're lifting, you're running, you're doing calisthenics, body weight strength training, whatever you're doing, you are applying a stimulus in an attempt to progressively overload, and you want your body to make the adaptations that are required to that training. You need 0.8 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. That's the minimum, and I would even recommend going a little higher than that, maybe up to 1 gram per pound. And that is because in research, they have what's called a confidence interval, and it's basically what's the fudge factor, how far off do they think they are, and so they're basically saying, hey, 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body mass, but because of the confidence interval, yeah, we may be off, 5-10%, whatever. So I would overshoot the 0.8 grams a little bit, with 0.8 grams being the absolute floor, or 1.6 grams per kilo being the absolute floor, if you want to ensure proper adaptations to training. With that being said, so you want to ensure that you are progressively overloading. If progressive overloading is not taking place, if you're not able to progressively increase the intensity or the volume of your training, then you need to look at your energy balance, see if you're eating enough to support your activity level, and then from there, make sure you're getting enough protein to facilitate proper adaptations to the training. And then lastly, look at your sleep and recovery, and are those things inadequate? Remember that the body is an adaptive organism adapting to external stressors, right? And the external stimulus, the external stress, the body adapts and you become stronger. At night when you sleep is when the body resets and puts you in an optimal position to then wake up and go stress the body some more and make adaptations, okay? And so this is the easiest way I can put this from a rest and recovery standpoint to include sleep, and sleep being the most important part of rest and recovery. Your stress hormones are mitigated during sleep. Your anabolic hormones are restored during sleep. Cellular damage, there's all kinds of stuff going on when you sleep that are critically important for you to be able to continue to make advances from the progressive overload, and the proper nutrients and diet that you've set up. So if you're doing the first 3 of these and you're still not getting results, look at your sleep and your recovery. There's a saying that gets thrown around sometimes that there is no overtraining, there is only under recovery. And it's really overtraining and under recovery are basically the same thing, right? If you are sleeping 8 hours a night, and I'm sure most people aren't, but if you're sleeping 8 hours per night and you're getting optimal natural hormone production, your testosterone levels are high, your cortisol levels. Cortisol is an absolutely essential hormone to life, but you don't want to have the wrong amount. So when the body's balancing things, when you're getting adequate sleep, cortisol is working the way it's supposed to. Your mental focus, your energy levels are higher. So it's really important that as you are training, if you're going through a period where you're stressed out and your sleep's not the best, you have a new baby. I mean, I have kids, they screw with my sleep. Well, my son more than my daughter. My daughter sleeps really, really well, but my son doesn't. So periods when my sleep is not the best, I purposely reduce my training volume. I will do shorter workouts, I'll back off, because I know that I'm not recovering the way that I really want to or what's optimal, so I can't afford to go pushing myself even harder in my training. And I'm not saying that you should go slacking off. I don't scale back intensity. I actually still push myself. I just scale back volume. And so that's something that I see a lot of people doing. I'll give you a quick example I talked about in the past. A girl was sleeping 5 hours a night, waking up, driving to the gym, working out for well over an hour a day. And so she was sacrificing 2 hours of sleep roughly to get to the gym and train, and only sleeping 5 hours a night. And in all honesty, sleep is so important that she would have been better off to not work out at all, to just eat well and sleep well and do no physical activity. Or like I mentioned in a past video, do 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes a day is more than enough to produce a training adaptation, a physiological adaptation in a beginner and a novice trainee. So don't sacrifice sleep to get to the gym. And I'm not talking about 20 minutes here and there. I mean, I know we're all busy, you've got to make concessions, but sleep is really, really important. And so it's about finding a balance. And so to recap, I will do a longer video on each of these so that this doesn't get super long. But the things you need to ask yourself now is, am I ensuring progressive overload? Am I adding volume, or am I adding intensity to my training sessions over time? If this isn't happening, you have to 100% get this going. You have to make progress. If you're not making progress in your workouts, you will not adapt. It's impossible, okay? So if you're not overloading, then is it because your energy levels are poor because you're not consuming enough diet and enough substrate, enough food to support the activity level? If you're out there running 3 miles a day and hitting, lifting hard for an hour, and so you're working out an hour and a half a day and you're eating 1,500 calories, you're doing it wrong. So progressive overload needs to be adhered to. You need to make sure you're eating to facilitate progressive overload. And then you need to make sure you're getting enough protein in addition to the right amount of energy. And then from there, you need to look at sleep and recovery and make sure that you are sleeping enough to facilitate full recovery from your training so that you can get back out there the next day and make progress so that you're progressively overloading. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm sorry if I rambled a little bit. Like I mentioned, I'll dig into each one of these topics in depth in a future video. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, click subscribe. Click the notification bell so that anytime I put out a new video, you are notified. And if you made it this far, I super appreciate it. And I appreciate you supporting Bodyweight Strength.